favorite place is always the place where I happen to be at a particular point in time.
The work I do is commenting on the discrepancies between individual memory and public history.
It's getting a lot of attention, and it's the right thing to do.
Today on Spotlight, an artist who tears things up, then puts them back together in a new way. Plus, travel journalist Bill Clevlen takes us to the places where dreams began for some famous Americans. And then WashU's Center for the Study of Itch. It's the only one of its kind in the U.S. But first, meet one of the longest-running female swim coaches who happens to be retiring this year. It's Sunday, and you're watching the Emmy Award-winning Spotlight.
What I really care about is expanding opportunities and encouraging education. And swimming and competitive swimming is just a vehicle in order to do that.
When Terry Varney Frericks talks about swimming, it's more than a sport. It's about life.
I think adaptability, flexibility, the importance of being involved with others, the importance of teamwork.
Frericks' career began at the young age of 4. She was the 5th of 5 swimmers in her family.
And it goes back to my father. I think, honestly, the greatest gift he gave me was helping me pursue swimming, teaching me how to swim. It's been a lifelong passion and a lifelong theme of mine, and it's touched me in so many wonderful ways.
She became a nationally ranked swimmer, but that success also led to perhaps her first life lesson.
I was the national record holder in the 50-yard butterfly. So we went to Canada. I was representing the United States. I had all my USA stuff on. I was totally excited. And the first race was the girls' 50-yard butterfly, and I was disqualified.
Disqualified means she made an error in her technique. Terry felt badly and approached her coach.
He said, well, it's okay. These things, they happen. And so he taught me how to be with mistakes.
She got back to work, breaking records and qualifying for the Olympic trials. She also met her future husband.
Stan was actually swimming on another team, and he would get out of the 200 fly and I'd get in the 200 fly, so our paths would cross.
Terry was named an All-American swimmer while attending Arizona State. But then, another setback.
Because I had to leave the university because there were no funds to continue to pay it, and there was no Title IX yet, so there were no scholarships for women.
Frericks came home, enrolled at the University of Missouri St. Louis, and channeled her love of swimming into a coaching job. She moved up the ranks of the CSP Tide Riders, eventually becoming the club's executive director.
It's important for the females and for the males to see women in positions of authority and as good sources, someone that can help them reach their goals and do what they want to do.
Terry's philosophy defined the club through several generations.
She was always looking for ways to improve the swimmers, not just the body, but the mind. And she was always focused on the mental health of kiddos and young swimmers, and those she was teaching.
Susie Fox was coached by Terry as a teen. Now her own teens swim for the club.
She was very inclusive, very supportive. She wasn't warm fuzzy, and that's not what we needed. We needed somebody who believed in us, who was strong and fair and hard. But it was, there are memories and lessons that I've learned from when I was 12 years old that I continue at 52, 40 years later.
Terry is one of the longest-running female swim coaches in the United States. Still, education remained a priority. Terry earned her master's in education at UMSL and her PhD in counseling at St. Louis University. She opened her own practice in addition to coaching.
Coaching and counseling are very similar. You have people who want to get from point A to point B, and they want to enhance their quality of life, meaning, they're functioning, and they don't want to get in their own way. So, you help them with that. So there's counseling that goes on in coaching, and there's coaching that goes on in counseling.
Some of the biggest moments of my swimming career she was a part of.
Dave McCrary was a member of the USA national swim team, swam at the Olympic trials, and is a Missouri state champion. But when he first came to CSP and Coach Terry, it was a vulnerable time.
I came from a coach, and today's standards, he'd be abusive. So I needed something. I left that. I was tired of that situation. So she was great for that. She was ahead of her time, in my opinion. So she was very personable. She was professional at all times. So that was something I needed, and I try to emulate today in my coaching.
McCrary returned to CSP as head coach in 2005 and later took the reins as executive director.
What she's done for the swim team is nothing short of miraculous. I mean, it started off, and I know there was a time when she had about 13 swimmers, and now we're over 400 swimmers on a consistent year-to-year basis.
Freerks plans to stay active. Both she and her husband swim and compete as seniors. The couple is also active at UMSL, where they've been honored for their contributions.
It goes back to enhancing quality of life and creating opportunities. If people are educated, then they have more opportunities, and they are able to recognize them better, I think.
Retiring just means Terry Freerks will have more freedom in her schedule, but her legacy in and out of the pool remains.
Follow HEC Media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
I want the work I do to come from an intimate, caring absorption in the process. I tear stuff up. I stack things, books mostly, sometimes other objects, in the way that sculptors who work with soft materials often stack unconventional objects to make the sense of a sculpture come into view. I see the work I do as commenting on the discrepancies between individual memory and public history.
Buzz Spector Alterations presents an array of work from Buzz's career from the 1970s to today. Buzz Spector is a conceptual artist. The purest definition of conceptual art is that the art is very much about the idea. Everything is planned out and thought through very well, but he also cares deeply about the aesthetics of the object and the process and how it looks and feels.
The fundamental gesture of my work is that tear, whether I articulate it by shading over it or if it becomes an edge itself. The several drawings in the show, I used templates of torn paper to create the organic, flowing graphic effect in drawings I began making in 1972. It only took me 10 years to recognize that the templates were art in and of themselves. Some notion of literary value has to be a part of the project. Books that are good books or widely circulated books, pages of print in a book look pretty similar, so I'm really interested in a kind of intersection of what was the subject of the original book, how was the type size settled on, and the leading and the configuration of pages, what paper was it printed on, and how effective is my form of alteration in preserving the memory of reading in the work. I use photography a lot in my work as a starting point for other kinds of artworks. I take my photograph and have it printed up using commercial photolithography. I then take the entire press run of the poster and bind it together as if each in turn was a book with the same image on every page. At that point, I tear through the pile of printed images incrementally, tearing most of the first image away and none of the last image away. It looks like a painting because of that evenness of texture, at which point the question about what differentiates this carefully torn line from a carefully painted stroke becomes hard to resolve.
He's often working with something that already exists, appropriating it, whether it's a book or an author's portrait, and then he's doing something to it. There's some kind of artistic maneuver that turns it into a different thing. What is kind of wonderful about this exhibition is that it shows the full range.
One of the things that was important in choosing the work for the show is working with Elizabeth Wyckoff and Gretchen Wagner, not to choose the things that I was fondest of for whatever idiosyncratic reason, but to build a kind of constellation of interests based on work I'd made and led into public life. My overwhelming sense, the first time I was able to see the completed installation, was that everything was where it was supposed to be. And I can't tell you enough how moving an experience it is for an artist to see these shards of a life knit together to form a vision of a whole.
So there's a brochure for this exhibition, which is actually an altered work by Buzz Spector. It includes a close-up detail of one of his paintings, and then Buzz very generously offered to tear each and every cover. So it's a very special brochure, and it's a fun show.
Buzz Spector Alterations is at the St. Louis Art Museum through May 31st, 2021. For more info, go to slam.org.
Go to hecmedia.org for the arts and authors,
Completely accidental because I never set out to write a book.
culture and community,
Considered to be the oldest organic farm west of the Mississippi.
science,
I'm wearing 3D glasses, operating on a high-definition screen.
and history.
I was really blown away by the strategy that was used through the Underground Railroad.
Education,
I look forward to the day when they graduate high school. I want to be a part of that.
films,
It's a long cost penny.
Finding the coin places the site firmly in the 13th century.
what's happening now around St. Louis, and more.
This is powerful, seeing my mother's story being told.
Search all of HEC Media's award-winning content. HEC Media has earned the Mid-America Emmy Award for Overall Excellence 4 times. See for yourself at hecmedia.org.
Have you ever dreamed of hitting the open road and finding out where it takes you?
Hey, I'm Bill Clevlen from BillOnTheRoad.com, and today I'm exploring Southwest Illinois' great rivers and routes.
St. Louis-based travel writer Bill Clevlen gets to do it for a living, but it wasn't something he dreamed of doing.
I did not get a driver's license until I was like 19 years old. Seriously, I always hated to drive. Never in a million years would I imagine that this is what I would be doing.
Bill's journey to becoming a travel writer was a bit of a bumpy ride. He wanted to be in show business, but settled in radio. It was the purchase of a new car which steered him towards taking short road trips and led him to share his experiences online. His dry wit can be seen in his writings and videos, like this one, shot with a fellow travel journalist during the 2020 COVID quarantine.
I'm watching you live. I just had a few notes for you.
The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. That's a great place.
Sorry, closed.
Wrigley Field.
Nope, closed.
Hoover Dam.
Closed.
Space Needle.
Also closed.
Liberty Bell.
Closed.
Okay, I know. My hometown of St. Louis, the Gateway Arch. That's gotta be.
Okay, that one's open.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
wait, never mind, it's closed.
Oh, son of a...
Happy Travel and Tourism Week.
I love when people ask me about my favorites for travel stuff. My favorite place is always the place where I happen to be at a particular point in time.
Bill would likely recommend your first stop in planning a road trip is to visit his website, BillOnTheRoad.com. From the top 20 road trips from St. Louis to how to tour the White House, traveling the Grand Canyon safely, to 5 quirky places to sleep in the Midwest, a novice or seasoned traveler will find Bill's tips and reviews.
And so people go there and they look and they get hopefully good ideas, suggestions for places to go that aren't too far from St. Louis, but I do travel all over the country.
Bill's compiled some of his writings into 4 books, including the popular travel guide, 100 Things to Do in America Before You Die. His latest is Finding the American Dream, a guided tour of places where Americans changed history. Tired of negative news, Bill chronicles the success stories of famous Americans from their humble beginnings.
As I've traveled around the country, I've been inspired by rags to riches stories that prove anyone in America can achieve greatness. Dreamers have come from every state, launching careers in smoke-filled honky-tonks, one-bedroom shacks, laboratories, cluttered garages, and yes, even along bumpy graveled roads in the middle of nowhere. Some sacrificed their lives, risked arrest, or faced impossible odds to achieve greatness.
So this is your 3rd travel book, but it's a bit of a departure, pardon the pun, than your first 2, Driving Across America and 100 Things to Do in America Before You Die. How would you describe this latest book, Finding the American Dream?
It's a guidebook, but it's also a history book. Of the travel books that I've written, so far it's my favorite, but it was also a whole heck of a lot of work because I profiled about 70 Americans. Most of them you would know. Some of them you wouldn't probably know their names, but I had to take their stories. Most of them are just these really incredible stories, and I had to condense them down to 2 or 4 pages. And so try to take the highlights from their life, try to share a few things that people might not know about them, but then also talk about places where you can go to connect with their legacy. So the criteria for me to include them in this book was that they had to have either a historical site dedicated specifically to them, or a museum dedicated specifically to them. Because, I mean, the book could have been, 800 pages long, truly. I mean, there's so many great people who have found the American dream. But so that was the criteria. And then the cool thing is, so you learn about their story, learn some fun facts about them, but then also I give you a place to actually go. So once you learn about them, you can go to them. So if it's, it's Elvis Presley, let's just say, he was one of the ones that you can actually go to his childhood home in Tupelo, Mississippi. Or Tina Turner, with some St. Louis ties there. Sure. You can go to the one-room schoolhouse where she learned to sing in Tennessee. So it's taking people back to the places where their dreams began, and then also where their dreams were achieved.
Scan the QR code on your screen with your phone's camera to watch the full interview and find out why visiting Mr. Rogers' early home surprised him the most. You can also download our Talking with Authors podcast. A bed and breakfast with a special mission later on Spotlight.
Itching and scratching consumed Karen Berger's life until she met dermatologist Dr. Brian Kim.
I would wake up in the morning and there'd be blood on the sheets because I had scratched during the night. I wasn't even aware of it, but you would scratch until you just bled.
For 2 years, her quality of life suffered. The itch was debilitating. This is what she said she did all the time. Scratch herself as the itching was extreme, unbearable, and unrelenting. It never went away.
I started getting rashes on my back. It ended up spreading everywhere.
Karen went to specialists, dermatologists, and allergists. She tried everything, including every test and cream they offered. No relief, and it only got worse. She suffers from chronic itch from an unknown cause, a condition called idiopathic pruritus. Eventually, she was sent to see Dr. Kim.
Before I got on the medication, it became so overwhelming that I didn't know what I was going to do next.
That medication is the remedy Kim offered. It's an anti-inflammatory drug called Xeljanz, a rheumatoid arthritis medication. But the drug is also a potential new therapy for chronic itch. Kim is co-director of the Center for the Study of Itch and Sensory Disorders at Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis. He says the center is the only research facility in the country fully dedicated to itch. Kim's team discovered an itch molecule that stimulates a key protein in nerves, a critical component of chronic itching, leading to a small clinical trial with this particular rheumatoid arthritis medication, Xeljanz.
Drug called tofacitinib. Its brand name is Xeljanz. This JAK enzyme that it blocks was known to be a great target as an anti-inflammatory agent. As a result, this drug is used for rheumatoid arthritis, and the aha moment was that, JAK doesn't just work in immune cells, but it's very important in the nervous system. That, this drug could actually be a neuromodulatory drug, not an immunomodulatory drug.
He proved it works for chronic itch patients. On average, they experience 80% improvement.
Within 24 hours, the intensity of the itch had started to subside. But within 2 weeks, I was completely clear. I was back to my normal skin then.
15% of people suffer from chronic itch, either caused by inflammatory conditions like eczema and psoriasis, or associated with cancers and nerve disorders. Chronic itching without a known cause is more of a problem as people age.
Your nervous system starts to wear out. But the other thing we also recognize is that your skin, as a dermatologist, that your skin gets weaker. And the third thing is that we also know your immune system changes.
Researchers at the center are always investigating, trying to understand itch and sensory disorders. Kim always has a study underway, concluding, or about to get started. This technology goes into an itch patient's home. The Emerald device is a touchless sensor and machine learning platform for health analytics. In this clinical trial, the device detects patients' movements, including scratching with correlating data. Machine learning can lead to a diagnosis and intervention. And what about that pesky back itch many people have, which is likely the reason why a back scratcher was invented? Notalgia, Paresthetica, or NP, is a chronic itch disorder that results in localized itching on the back. Kim says there's a promising new drug that acts on sensory neurons to suppress the itch. He's beginning a phase 2 clinical trial with NP patients to investigate. Itch from atopic dermatitis or eczema is another big one. Kim's team recently identified an entirely new mechanism, an antibody involved in a form of itch and eczema. The mechanism is also a central player in asthma and food allergy. Kim says the research may unveil why allergic processes like a food allergy are poorly misunderstood. Through research, Kim is hoping to improve the quality of life for all itch patients. After 2 years of suffering, Karen's life changed within a matter of days after stepping through these doors.
Back to being normal again. I mean, I can just be normal again. I don't have to worry about it.
HEC Media presents Talking with Authors, the podcast. Your favorite writers and genres, with diverse subjects and styles. Like New York Times bestselling author Brad Meltzer, crime writer Karen Slaughter, Charles Fishman, Sarah Kendzior, Judy Bloom, with new podcasts dropping bi-weekly. Subscribe to Talking with Authors wherever you get your podcasts. From HEC Media, Left Bank Books, and the St. Louis County Library. Just about a block down this country road off the main road through Waterloo, Illinois, there is a fairly new bed and breakfast being run out of this fairly old house. It is called the Seymour Inn. Not Seymour like someone's name, but Seymour as in, well, see more. I'll explain what that means in just a moment. But first, let's meet the staff.
Hello.
This is Linda, and this is Linda's coworker, Linda.
Hi, everybody.
Having the name Linda is not a requirement for employment here, but there is one thing that everyone who works at the Seymour must have in common: a developmental or intellectual disability.
I do the cooking all the time. I just like to clean.
The Seymour Inn is owned by Human Support Services, a private not-for-profit organization that helps the disabled in Monroe County. And what could be more helpful than finding someone a job, which is what this organization has been doing for many years. But with the Seymour Inn, they are now running their own business. It's part of a philosophy known as person-centered planning.
Everybody has a gift, and they all have a calling or purpose, and it's really our place to find out how that person can use that gift.
Our employees that work here take so much pride in the work that they do, and they really believe that this bed and breakfast is their bed and breakfast.
The house was built in 1875. In 2018, it became the Seymour Inn. It features 4 bedrooms, all named for people who had something inspiring to say about the disabled, like Mr. Rogers and actor Christopher Reeve.
At first I was like, do we know anything about bed and breakfast? How are we going to do this? This is something different, but it's turning out to be really nice.
At home it gets kind of bored sometimes. It makes me feel real good.
They take charge. I kind of stand back and maybe give them a little direction once in a while, but they know what they're doing.
And the people who stay here also know what they are doing. The Seymour Inn makes sure its guests understand in advance what the place is all about.
You're going to feel good about yourself when you stay here and you get to interact with the people and you see how they care about you. It's a no-brainer to me.
It's a good cause for the handicapped to help other people out with their achievement and goals and everything else.
There are people just like you and me that have dreams and desires and gifts, and they want to live those out, just like you and me. They have goals that they want to achieve, just like you and me. And the Seymour Inn is a place where they can do just that.
So, about that name. Well, the decision to call it the Seymour Inn came about at a staff meeting when someone brought in a quote from a disabled poet named Robert Hensel.
There is no greater disability in society than the inability to see a person as more. And so we all loved that so much. When we did the final vote, that won.
While they assumed their B&B would mostly get travelers looking for R&R, As it turns out, what they see more of at the Seymour these days are wedding parties. And there's something about the notion of celebrating a new adventure in life that seems an apt description of what the Seymour is all about.
It's getting a lot of attention, and it's the right thing to do. And when you have all those things line up, it's absolutely worth every penny and every drop of sweat and every tear, because it makes a difference.
You can find the stories featured in today's show along with past episodes and more at hecmedia.org/spotlight. Pianist Herb Drury was a longtime presence on the St. Louis jazz scene, not only as a performer but as an educator, mentor, and influencer for generations of local artists. In 2010, HEC's Don Wolfe sat with Herb in his studio for an intimate performance of You Took Advantage of Me. Next week, we'll inspire your heart with art. Horsehair pottery, the Navajo technique, and the legend behind it. Plus, a 20-something who loves the sounds of the 20s, how music helped him fall in love with St. Louis. Thanks for watching Spotlight. Join us next Sunday at 9:30 a.m. on KPLR 11.